of course, as the golden buckle. And Southern California gets over 20% of all military spending through this whole period, pretty much. And LA, of course, gets very big and very rich off this. And guess who gets elected from LA? Ronald Reagan. Now, there's this. Interesting. And as Phil Etherington of USC, a political scientist, has pointed out, Reagan then leads the Southern California and the Sun Belt to this total domination of American politics over the last 30 years, maybe more. The neoliberal era, well, okay, things change, but they're still political. It still has to do, neoliberalism is going to be about globalism, global free trade. You'll read in David Harvey's book, in the second half of the course, how it all begins at home. Neoliberalism begins at home, and it's still operating at home. The Washington Consensus, a lot of you have heard about, which is let's get free trade plus neoliberal policies whenever a country gets into too much debt. Let's promote free trade through the IMF restructurings, through the WTO, through trade agreements, and so on. And neoliberalism, which talks about free trade, still requires American hegemony and American power. And oddly enough, military interventions keep continuing, even though. And that's where Ron Paul runs up against all the other conservatives because he doesn't believe in that because he's a theoretical libertarian, not a neoliberal. So he bangs heads with them because he doesn't think we should do this. But most good Republicans do. So it's not what it says. It's not just peaceful globalization. Again, globalization without military intervention, without U.S. power and the Washington Consensus. Oh, wait a second. I think I missed something I was going to say. Oh, yeah. I wanted to say, and of course, if you read Dick Pete's book, which I recommended in another lecture about the IMF, World Bank, and WTO, who controls them? Well, the U.S. and European powers appoint all the directors. And it's only, finally, since Cancun, with the revolt of Brazil and China and India, that the WTO has been answering to a new master. But up until then, in the World Bank, who's the head of the IMF? It's Strauss-Kahn, who got himself in a little trouble. But it turned out it was just his very foolish masculinity rather than any evil rape. But he got himself in a lot of trouble and he's out. But why was he there? And who's he replaced by? A French woman. Because Europeans, which means often the French, get to appoint the head. Okay. And of course, under neoliberalism, Reagan was very neoliberal, free markets and all that, but he was quite happy to support the Contras against the revolutions in Central America. And then George Bush Sr. invades Panama. I believe these bodies are from Panama in 1989. When Noriega, one of our CIA operatives, he was like Saddam. He was a CIA connection who went bad. He went against us, and that's the worst thing you can do. And that's why they went after him, and that's why they went after Saddam, is because these were regarded as traitors to the empire. Not just bad guys, because they were dictators. Because when they were just dictators, we did business with them. Okay, patrolling the Middle East. Well, I'm not going to go to the Middle East. I don't have enough time. Forget it. However, no, I won't forget it because, of course, I'm talking about neoliberalism. Once you get George Bush Jr., this has a longer history, but by the time George Bush Jr. is there, you get this absolutely untrammeled, unhegemonic type invasions, where we said, we have the right to invade Iraq and Afghanistan no matter what. We don't really care what anybody says. Now, the problem with that, and the reason it got so much flack, is it wasn't very hegemonic. Also, of course, USSR collapses in 89, 90, and Bush, that's when Bush Sr. as president declares the New World Order, which means there is no alternative. The same slogan, by the way, that was the slogan of Margaret Thatcher for neoliberalism in Britain. There is no alternative. There is no socialism. I mean, she didn't go get all hot and bothered about socialism like the Tea Party. She just said, it's impossible, it can't exist. And that's a perfect liberal position, as opposed to the right-wing crazy position. Notice that the EU also couldn't have gotten Eastern Europe without NATO actually going in first. NATO is the vanguard of the liberation of Eastern Europe as the Soviet Union collapses. They then tried to go into Georgia and so on. That hasn't worked out so well, and Russia's still dominant there. But the reaction to this new attempts to encircle Russia were very negative within Russia and helped put Putin back into power because Russians were not happy with being subordinate. Now, it doesn't mean they're good people. It just means that, like all big countries, they think that they are important. And then we have our military news, which has expanded to over 1,000 bases now. We've opened new fronts. We have new commands in the Indian Ocean so that we can get into South Asia. We have the new African command, which is tightly linked to all those resources and the Chinese coming in and the oil along the West African coast and so on. And we have rapid deployment and so on and so on. So our military news has actually expanded since the Cold War, not shrunken. And yet we don't have the Soviet enemy. So what's that about? Well, it's about policing the world. A great book by a geographer from here, Trevor Paglen, Blank Spots on the Map. That's all the 10% or 15% of the Pentagon budget that's black. That is, it's invisible. You don't know where it is. You don't know what it is. Very scary. But I love the ideology that comes out, over time. Reagan saying, America's the most peaceful nation on earth. Right. I will never apologize to the United States of America. I don't care what the facts are. That's a famous one from George Bush Sr. And then I love this. Thomas Friedman's one of the most important popular journalistic ideologues for neoliberalism. He wrote The World is Flat. He writes for the New York Times. And this is his actual moment of truth. That the hidden hand of the market will never work without a hidden fist. I couldn't have put it better myself, and Thomas Friedman did for me. See, you think I just make this shit up because I'm some commie or something. But amazingly enough, most of what I tell you is true. I attempt to tell you what is true, not simply my opinion. I know a lot of you who have conservative, I see your little suspicious faces back there. You're looking, I see you guys looking at me going, yeah, right, I believe that. And of course, and you're pretty, you can imagine what the people who go to poli-sci courses would think. They all want to be politicians. Okay, sorrows of empire. So we can get through this, and I think we're going to make it in time. Well, being an imperial hegemon isn't actually all that great all the time. It has these nice payoffs for the economy. It helps keep capitalism expanding. But we've had some problems, too. And I think today, after the Iraq War and so on, people may be more aware of this than ever, which is only a good thing. And it isn't just a few people like me ramping on. Because if you don't learn it for yourself, I can't tell you. Okay, Vietnam. That didn't work out so well. After a string of pretty successful interventions, the U.S. got itself deeply in the doo-doo and got hung up in Vietnam for 10 years and then lost. Unheard of. Now, of course, in the official view of this, you can't admit that we lost, but we lost. We took over the French. The French had foolishly tried to retake Indochina. They're not nice either. They have really good cuisine. Some of them are very nice. But they were great. They were worse imperialists than we were in so many ways. Today, of course, they have lots of great rallies. Their workers are strong and so on. But their government is still messing around in Chad and Rwanda. And did a great job in Rwanda, by the way. So anyway, we took over from France when they were being stupid, and they'd been defeated at Dien Bien Phu. And guess what? And we said, well, we got to stop communism. Of course, Ho Chi Minh actually was a great admirer of Thomas Jefferson and the American Declaration of Independence. We never saw that side of him. He had been in the Communist Party. I guess he joined the Communist Party as a young radical when he went to Paris. That's always a bad nerve. And got as a student and so on. But we weren't going to listen to this nationalist stuff. It was either our way or the highway. And communism wasn't going to go. Then, of course, China and Russia, for their own reasons, backed North Vietnam and backed the Vietnamese, South Vietnamese, Viet Cong. And guerrilla warfare, very combined with support from outside, combined with brilliant tactics. And guess what? We lost. Now, we lost, what, how many? U.S. dead was around 50,000, and wounded is closer to 250,000, I think. Huge cost. But the Vietnamese lost 2 million. And it was humiliating. And let me tell you that the conservatives, the pro-empire guys, Ronald Reagan et al., hated this because the country was exhausted. We'd had an anti-war movement, both, and not just students, but I mean among soldiers. And people were in open revolt against this war. They had to end it. So Nixon said, okay, Vietnam, I'm going to send you off on your own, the same way we're doing in Iraq. And actually, it helped mobilize the 1980s disarmament movement where Europeans and Americans were trying to get the Soviets and the U.S. to disarm nuclear weapons. Huge peace movement, which really must have driven Ronald Reagan batty. And they were really furious. They were angry at Vietnam for years. Of course, very angry at Russia, so they got back at Russia by helping support the Mujahideen in Afghanistan and messing up, which helped bring Russian occupation of Afghanistan to an end. We were angry with China and angry with our own people, actually, that we weren't sufficiently pro-imperial anymore. And it took a while to persuade us. And 9/11, of course, actually worked to great effect that way to persuade Americans that this was okay to go invading other countries again. But there was more to it than that. And they really revived. But 9/11, everybody says, wow, obviously that was a big turning point. It led to the Iraq War, invasion of Afghanistan, and so on. But of course, it was also a huge defeat for the U.S. That terrorists could come into the U.S. territory and pull off what they pulled off was extremely disturbing for this untouched imperial power. And of course, our line was, the Bush line always, they hate our freedom. But if you know what goes on in the world, you might think that there's more to it than that. That maybe actually some of the people who hate U.S. imperialism actually love freedom, their freedom. Now, that doesn't forgive Al-Qaeda and a bunch of fanatic religious fundamentalists who I have no sympathy with whatsoever, and blowing up people with bombs I have no sympathy with, whether you do it from airplanes or flying into buildings or whatever your mode of delivery is. But we do get this war on terror, which just goes on and on and on. Iraq, a disastrous invasion, as you all know, because it's in your lifetime. It was illegal. It was done very foolishly, with very poor evidence, very poor excuses, all of which turned out to be bogus, and no allies except Poland. No, honestly, we had this pathetic little group of the willing. It was a joke. And generally, the U.S. had mustered huge support behind its policies, even when you and I certainly wouldn't agree with those policies. But this time, they said, we don't need all that. Well, it turns out hegemony means what it says. It isn't just I lead, you listen, you do what I say. And of course, the Iraqi resistance really threw a spanner into the works, didn't it? And they had actually, as what's her name, Naomi Klein argued, it's all about clearing the way for capitalism in Iraq. And that's true, that whole plan of how to make Iraq really capitalist, and not so just a simple oil, kind of a backward oil economy, a one-dimensional government-run economy, but turn it into real functioning capitalism. They had a whole plan, but the Iraqi resistance blew that out of the water. And now all they want is to get the hell out of there with the least amount of losses. And of course, Iraq was just a disaster on any number of scales. I probably don't need to repeat to you. Afghanistan is an ongoing disaster where we're just repeated what the Russians did, and we're going to have the same result. So we will leave with our tail between our legs. Pakistan has gotten worse, if that's possible. And I put that up there. I'm out of time, so I'm not going to say more about that. But Musharraf, a military dictator, couldn't hold it together. Bhutto got blown up. I mean, there's plenty. Now Karzai, who's himself elected in a rigged election, was trying to sort of do peace with the Taliban, and now he's denouncing Pakistan for being behind the Taliban because they blew up the ex-president, who was his peace negotiator. And they're constantly blowing up people around Afghanistan. And there's a lot of evidence. This guy, the leading nuclear scientist of Pakistan, who helped Pakistan get the bomb, started giving away the secrets. And so we got bomb technology got into the hands of a lot of people who shouldn't have gotten it. It's a mess. The world, Arab Spring, that causes a lot of nervousness. And this is just a nice map of all the inflation base. Let's say it's all the upheavals in 2011 around the world. So maybe it is the end time of neoliberalism. And the last thing I want to say about the cost of empire, military budgets we can't pay for. There's the evidence. You can look at it in PDF. The cost may top $3.7 trillion. We certainly don't have that. Everybody makes a big fuss about Social Security. Well, you could pay for it 6 times over. And what about the economic decline? Have we spent our way into decline? Is this military umbrella paying off for us? Meanwhile, China's chugging along, building up as the new potential rival. And where does that leave us? What I don't get the chance to look at here is what this has cost us domestically in terms of things like torture, the end of habeas corpus, Guantanamo, and other ugly results of domestic reduction of our freedom in the name of freedom. That's enough propaganda for today, right?